Owning a Porsche has always been a childhood dream, and I had a few of their Hot Wheels when I was about 4 years old. And now I have a real-life straight-piped Hot Wheel that brings a huge smile to my face every time I drive it. And now that I've owned my dream car for a couple of years, here are 4 things, plus an honorable mention, that I didn't know about owning a car that had no substitute. Oh, and at the end, I'll dig into a little about what I've learned about being a Porsche owner. It's great to see you guys again. Let's go. Now, I'm sure you've heard someone say that they don't need a radio in their car because they can just listen to their exhaust note. So let's just say that I had extremely high hopes the first time I mashed the go pedal on the test drive of my Porsche 911, and I was met with pure disappointment. Stock Porsche exhausts just don't do it for me at all. So once I bought the car, the first thing that I did was order an AWE aftermarket exhaust. And although the tune was more toned, it still just wasn't loud enough. So I decided to remove mufflers, and now the car sounds just as good as it looks. One of my favorite things in this world is to do a 3rd-second downshift and then plant the rear and just slice through the apex of the skirt, which Porsches are extremely good at doing. Ask me how I know. Porsches just deserve an exhaust that fits the character of the car. And nowadays, there's a ton of different options that really bring the boys to the yard. I was extremely scared of how much it was going to cost to get into my first Porsche 911. And one of the main reasons is because, well, it's always a contender for Sports Car of the Year by numerous publications. So I just assumed that every generation was going to be out of my budget. But then I found out more about the 996 gen. With those ugly fried headlights and engines that just like to explode thanks to the IMS, RMS, LOL, this car was right up my alley. And since I'm a value shopper and I always am looking to score the next ideal deal, I used the ideal car strategies to get the best deal. And by using them, I narrowed it down to the 996 Carrera 4S. It has all-wheel drive for the rainy Seattle winters here in Seattle. It was special because it had all the turbo pieces but the motor, and the best part is that it was priced in the mid-20s. But let's face it, anybody looking for a 996 would be tempted if a comparable 997 popped up. And lucky me, a 997 with a bad clutch and a few other things did come up for sale close by, so I bought it. For less than 30 grand, which is what you could buy a new Toyota 86 or a Mazda Miata for, I was able to get my hands on the best German sports car ever made. So just take it from me, don't be intimidated by price. Go fire up your local Facebook Marketplace or Car Gurus and check out a 911. They're probably transacting a lot less than you think, and they're a lot less to keep on the road than you think, as we'll find out later in this vid. When the first 911 came out on the scene in 1964, it was a radical sports car with an engine hanging out back. And the original 911 Turbo was known as the Widowmaker. The turbocharged engine, rear weight bias chassis with no nannies at all, really demanded a different kind of driver and a different style of driving to keep it pointed in the right direction. See, the car would enter the turn, and if you were going a little too hot, you lift off the throttle, which would induce lift-off oversteer and cause the car to switch ends. And so when I hopped into the 997 for the first time, and all of that talk about the Widowmaker was just going throughout my head. I know it wasn't a turbo, but it was really scary. And literally after the first couple of shifts, I was completely wrong with my preconceived notions because all those fears were quickly dissolved, and I felt like 40 years plus of engineering really helped this chassis feel really planted to the ground. Porsche's hard work since its inception really means that this car is a lot more docile and predictable than any car that I had heard about. Plus, what I quickly learned is that the rear engine layout is awesome for two reasons. First, they have better traction than front and mid-engine cars because all the weight is over the rear wheels. And secondly, since the engine is so close to the rear wheels, there's less drivetrain loss. And both of those reasons add up to a ton of fun. Plus, believe it or not, they're actually great drift cars. So when you're driving a Porsche 911, and since all the weight's in the rear, you're gonna feel pretty light up front, which actually inspires confidence, especially if you know the rear is gonna stick. And the 997 911, or really any water pumper for that matter, is going to inspire a ton of confidence. Just point, keep your foot down on the throttle, and go, baby, go. All right, now it's time for that ideal question of the day, which is, what's one of your ultimate dream cars? Was it a Porsche 911 like me, or some sort of Ferrari, or a Lambo, or maybe something else? Let us know down in the comments. Let's go. Luckily, Porsche 911s today are still offered with a stick, but they don't really stick out. Okay, yes, a Porsche 911 has more performance in its rear tire than the casual consumer knows what to do with. And to top it off, it is just so easy to live with. And that's why in more populated cities, seeing one is not out of the ordinary. And that is specifically the problem, at least for me it was. Because when I first bought my Porsche 911, I thought I was gonna stick out a little bit. So the car attracted way less attention than I thought. But I had a trick up my sleeve. And after throwing on some vinyl wrap, thanks to my boys over at Vivid Vinyl, I got all the attention that I could ever want. And if you want to see that full transformation in about 5 minutes, go check it out up here. Yeah, baby, that thing went from stock to hot. Well, it's debatable. I mean, just look at the comment section in that vid. Anyways, what I've learned about owning a Porsche 911 for 2+ years is that it's a lot like meeting a beautiful woman. Smart, athletic, thoughtful, the kind you'd want to marry. Just remember, you're gonna want to get an extended warranty on it if you can afford it after the honeymoon. Ask me how I know. Well, I was sort of kidding on the extended warranty on your Porsche, of course. Because if you're planning to service your car at a dealer, it's a must-have. My 60,000 mile service was gonna be over $1,300 at the dealer. And I thought it was gonna be extremely expensive to keep the car on the road. And guess what? It has been my most reliable car that I've kept for an extended period of time ever. So what I did is I found a qualified technician at a Porsche independent repair shop. And yes, if you haven't heard of it, the Porsche Premium is true. Meaning there's a quote unquote Porsche tax on parts. But trust me, if you shop around, you can find inexpensive parts at sites like Pelican Parts, which I've done a lot of business with in the last couple of years. If you're gonna buy any type of Porsche, remember this one thing. Buy it for yourself. I can't stress this enough. People have Ferraris, Lambos, Aston Martins just to show off. But people who buy Porsches buy them to drive them because they're literally the best driver's car. Yes, I agree with you, they aren't perfect, but dollar for dollar, they punch way above their weight. Also, I can't stress enough, if you do buy one, link up with your local Porsche chapter. I've linked up with the Porsche community up here in the Pacific Northwest, and one thing that I've learned is that they love to drive the piss out of their cars. If we're going to Monterey Car Week in August, or we're going to Palm Springs in January, they drive the car there. Full send, through the mountains, in the winter, it don't matter. Oh, and I've also learned that there are two types of Porsche owners. The first are the ones that try to show off that they've made it. And I initially fell into this category. I'll be honest. And the second type of owner is the one that seriously drives the thing. They're the person that buys the 996 911, cheap Boxster, or maybe a GT2 RS, and drives the absolute snot out of it. And when they break it, they fix it, and they keep going. Lucky for you, the price point now is so low to get into the 996 model, and I personally love it. And in fact, our friend Magnus Walker found one for $5K. So there's never really been a better value to get into a 911 than now. So if you want to check out how my boy Magnus bought the cheapest and most hated Porsche 911 in the world, click here. Or check out what YouTube recommends you watch next. Oh, if you haven't yet, please subscribe, but either way, you can't lose, and as always, keep living that ideal lifestyle.